It's extraordinary that even after Newmarch and after other events, we did not see a national response. And the federal government has clear responsibility for aged care. Richard Colbeck has been a failure in every portfolio he has ever held. There's some irony between him now being in charge of sport and in charge of aged care. The fact is that this government simply needs to do better. The fact that protective equipment is not available to all workers at these aged care facilities is quite shocking at this point in the pandemic. The fact is that this government is good at announcement but not good at delivery. The fact is that this government is always there for the photo op but never there for the follow-up. The fact is that this government, once they hear the sound of the camera shutters, they're out of there. Not so much nick on as nick off. That's what this government does when it gets difficult to actually follow through. Well, they can't duck responsibility. The Prime Minister had nothing to say for 3 days last week. Well, he's on notice with a question without notice. Next Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, he will be accountable in the National Parliament. We need to have answers. Australians deserve answers. These workers who are putting themselves at risk in order to look after vulnerable elderly Australians deserve answers as well. And we can't wait for the Royal Commission to get those answers. We need government responses, we need appropriate resources, we need support for staff right now. Happy to take questions.
How are you going to bring about these changes in Parliament next week? What are the specific answers, or how is Labor going to ensure that these changes happen?
Well, what we'll do is continue to shine a light on these changes. There's a reason why the Prime Minister doesn't like Parliament sitting, because he doesn't like scrutiny and accountability. Parliament's an opportunity for us to hold the government to account. We'll be doing that on a range of areas, but no area more important than aged care.
In Victoria, aged care has often suffered quite substantially with this second outbreak. Four Corners last night documented the litany of failures from Victoria's hotel quarantine. At what point are you going to be prepared to condemn Dan Andrews for his failure to manage that?
Well, obviously there have been issues with quarantine in Victoria, and Daniel Andrews himself hasn't been like Scott Morrison. He fronts up every day for prolonged media conferences that go for over an hour. But the federal government has responsibility for aged care. That is unequivocal that that's the case. And we also know that there's a real distinction between what's happening in aged care that are run by government facilities and those that are not. And there's a need to examine why it is that that's the case, to look at the issues that have been raised by these workers. And I say to the Prime Minister, the union here, I'm sure, would be very prepared to have Scott Morrison come in here, sit down and talk with workers on the front line about their experience of what is happening in these facilities. Certainly, the Aged Care Royal Commission heard very, very clearly last week and unequivocally that this government did not have a national plan for aged care, did not have one, and that's their responsibility.
But shouldn't Daniel Andrews bear some of that responsibility for those failures, given that that has caused that outbreak that has spread?
Be very clear that the Aged Care Royal Commission has heard that there was no plan for aged care from this government, and it is very clear that it is the federal government that has responsibility for aged care. Daniel Andrews should be held to account and is being held to account. Has had an open, transparent inquiry, one in which he's appeared. Compare that with the actions of the federal government. that banned its officials appearing before the Ruby Princess inquiry that was initiated by the Liberal government here in New South Wales.
Just on some other issues, if Sergeant Hekam is released as part of the Afghan-Taliban prisoner swap, and there's some indications that he may have already been released, does that represent a failure of diplomacy by the Australian government?
It is a complete failure of diplomacy, and frankly, the families of those who were murdered in cold blood by this terrorist action will be really hurting if it is the case that this terrorist is released. The fact is that the United States needs to understand that this is a major issue here in Australia, and this person should not be released, full stop, exclamation mark.
Do you agree with Bill Shorten that it's now incumbent on Scott Morrison to tell Donald Trump that Australia's his ally, not his doormat?
Oh, he hasn't said that.
That Australia,
He didn't. He didn't say that.
Is that something that
Well, I haven't said that. Well, I speak for myself, and what it is clear is that the United States is Australia's ally. We should be in a position to very strongly say that Australia expects this terrorist to not be released.
And just in regards to medical advice from Queensland to Queensland federal MPs and senators that they should isolate for 2 weeks when they return from the next sitting period in Canberra, is that medical advice going to reduce the number of ALP caucus members from Queensland who have contend the next sitting period?
Well, caucus members will be exercising their responsibilities according to their own circumstances as well. Some people, for example, from Victoria simply aren't able to self-isolate with their families for 2 weeks prior. A range are able to do so. If so, that's why we have initiated the actions to make sure, along with the Speaker and the President of the Senate, that people will be able to participate in Parliament through the use of virtual technology, just like someone will be on the other end of this camera watching this. They don't have to be there in order to participate, and that's a good thing. So I'm positive that Queenslanders will be able to participate, whether in person or via video link. Just as other workplaces have adjusted right around the country, the Parliament's had to adjust as well, and that's a good thing. I do note that the Leader of the House, Christian Porter, was still saying, as much as last week, oh, the video link mightn't be available in the first week, it might only be available in the second week. Quite frankly, that's farcical. The idea that you could not, with weeks of notice, get up a video link. I'm very confident that it can be done, and I'm more confident in the Speaker and the President of the Senate than I am in Christian Porter's capacity to actually allow for participation of members and senators. Thank you.